Imagine pouring your life savings into restoring your dream home only to come back a week later and find strangers living in it claiming the HOA gave it to them. When Roland Pierce pulled up the gravel road leading to his mountain house, he expected silence, that peaceful stillness that had made him fall in love with the place. But instead, the first thing he saw was smoke. Not fog, not mist, smoke curling from the chimney of the house he hadn't lived in yet. He sat there for a few seconds in his truck, the engine idling, eyes fixed on the thin line rising into the pale afternoon sky. His keychain jingled softly as he tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He knew that fireplace. He'd built it himself just 3 weeks ago. Something was wrong. The gate he'd installed, the one with the new black latch, was shut tight and padlocked from the inside. That gate had only ever been locked from one side. As Roland stepped out of the truck, boots crunching against the gravel. The air was sharp with that mix of pine and cold dirt that always hit him first thing up here. He looked around, everything seemed familiar. But it wasn't. The silence felt different, heavy, occupied. There was a car in the driveway that wasn't his. A pale silver SUV, with a faded HOA permit sticker on the windshield. Roland's heart slowed to a crawl. The thought hit him, someone's inside. He walked closer, scanning the porch. The rocking chair he'd bought from the flea market, it was moving. Slowly. Not from the wind. Someone had just gotten up. Then the door opened. A woman stepped out, mid-50s, thin frame, blonde bob haircut, floral sweater. She looked like every HOA president Roland had ever met in his nightmares. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice clipped, eyes squinting like she was staring at an intruder. Roland blinked. "Yeah, this is my house." She tilted her head. "Oh. I don't think so. The Homeowners Association assigned this property to us last week. It was abandoned." He laughed, a dry, confused laugh that cracked in his throat. "Abandoned? Lady, I built half of this place myself." She crossed her arms. "Well, maybe you should take it up with the HOA. We have documents." She turned slightly, pointing to a man sitting on the porch, her husband, sipping coffee from Roland's mug. That's when it hit him, they weren't just inside his home. They'd moved in. Roland took a step forward, eyes locked on his own doormat under their shoes. "Where's your proof?" he said quietly. The woman smiled the kind of smile people wear when they know something you don't. "Oh, don't worry. We're all part of the same community now." A gust of cold air swept between them. Somewhere in the trees, a crow screamed. Roland felt his chest tighten. Every nail, every stone, every ounce of sweat he'd poured into this house, stolen behind a padlock. He turned back toward his truck, jaw tight, heartbeat echoing in his ears. He wasn't going to yell. Not yet. Not here. As he opened the driver's door, he noticed a folded paper wedged under his windshield wiper. HOA letterhead. His name misspelled. Notice of forfeiture due to non-compliance with community restoration policies. He read the words twice, each one hitting harder than the last. The paper smelled faintly of smoke. Roland looked up one more time, at the chimney, at the strangers on his porch, at the mountain air he used to love. And whispered to himself, "Not abandoned. Not by me." Then he drove off slowly down the gravel path, dust rising behind him like a storm waiting to come back. The next morning, Roland didn't drive back up the mountain. He drove down, straight into the valley town where the HOA office sat. A squat tan building with too much glass and too little soul. He parked across the street, just sitting for a moment, staring at the sign. Crestline Hills Homeowners Association. Preserving community integrity since 1984. He muttered under his breath. Integrity. Yeah, right. Inside, the lobby smelled like printer ink and coffee that had been reheated too many times. Behind the counter sat a young receptionist, chewing gum like she was keeping time with a clock only she could hear. "Can I help you, sir?" "Yeah," Roland said, setting the crumpled letter on the counter. "You all sent me this notice. It says my property's been forfeited." The girl glanced at it, then clicked her mouse a few times. "Name?" "Roland Pierce." She squinted at her screen. "You're not in the system." Roland leaned forward, calm but sharp. "I better be. I've owned that property for 6 years." The girl hesitated, chewing slower. "Let me get my manager." The manager appeared a minute later, gray suit, slick smile, HOA badge shining. He looked like the kind of man who used policy as a weapon. "Mr. Pierce," he began, voice polished. "I understand there's some confusion about your property." "No confusion," Roland said. "I restored that house myself. Your people broke in, moved strangers inside, and called it community compliance." The man smiled like this was a polite misunderstanding over coffee, not a theft. "Well, sir, technically, the lot was listed as unoccupied. Our records show no active residency for over 6 months. According to Section 14B of our restoration clause, the HOA is authorized to—" Roland cut him off. "Authorized to steal someone's house. To repurpose unoccupied dwellings for community members in need of housing," the man finished, still smiling. Roland exhaled slowly, eyes locked on him. "You know what's funny? I never signed your HOA agreement. That property was outside your boundary when I bought it." For the first time, the manager's smile flickered. Just slightly. Roland caught it. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folder, old papers, deeds, and a copy of his county survey map. "This line right here, that's your limit. My land's 10 yards past it. So unless your community just annexed a mountain overnight, you're trespassing." The manager's expression turned cold, corporate charm dissolving like sugar in rain. "Mr. Pierce, this isn't how things are done here. I'd advise you to seek legal counsel before making accusations." Roland smirked. "Oh, don't worry. I will. But first, I'm calling the sheriff." He turned to leave. The receptionist's gum froze mid-chew. The manager's jaw tightened. Outside, Roland dialed the county sheriff, but before he could hit call, another car pulled up beside his truck. It was the same silver SUV from the house. Karen, the woman from yesterday, stepped out, waving a clipboard. "Mr. Pierce." "There you are," she said, like they were old friends. "I just wanted to make sure you received your notice of community transition. You see, since you've technically violated the maintenance schedule, we—" Roland raised his hand. "Lady, don't finish that sentence." Her smile froze. "Excuse me." He stepped closer, voice steady but low. "You broke into my home. You're living off what I built with my hands. You think a stack of papers can justify that?" Karen's lips tightened. "You people are always so emotional about these things." That phrase hit him harder than a shove. "You people." For a moment, everything went quiet, no cars, no birds, just the sound of wind scraping across the pavement. Roland took a slow breath. "Keep talking, Karen. Every word you say's going into my report." He turned and got into his truck. Her voice followed him, sharp, angry, shrill. But he didn't look back. As he drove away, the mountain shimmered faintly in the distance. The house hidden behind the trees like it was waiting. And somewhere deep inside him, a thought formed, cold, certain, unstoppable. They think this is over. I haven't even started yet. For 3 days, Roland didn't go back to the mountain. He stayed in a cheap motel down in Crestline Valley, lights buzzing, air heavy with mold and diesel. The place was loud, ugly, but safe. And he needed safe, because he was about to go to war. Each night he sat at the little motel desk, papers spread out like a battlefield, deeds, blueprints, survey maps, old email chains from the county office. Somewhere in all that ink, he knew, was the proof that would bury the HOA. But every trail led to the same name, Karen Whitmore. Her signature was everywhere. HOA President. Treasurer. Compliance Chair. And now, uninvited tenant of his mountain house. He clicked his pen, staring at the letterhead. Crestline Hills HOA, preserving integrity. He whispered, integrity, my ass. That's when he noticed something strange. The property code listed on his house deed had been altered, one digit off. It looked small, a simple typo. But in land records, a single number could move an entire house into a different zone. Roland leaned back slowly. They shifted the boundary, he said to himself. Not on paper, digitally. He grabbed his phone, called the county recorder's office. A tired clerk answered. Crestline County Recorder's Office. Yeah, this is Roland Pierce. I need to confirm the parcel boundary on Lot 47B, Pine Ridge section. There was a pause. Then the clerk said, that lot's under HOA jurisdiction. Roland frowned. It wasn't, 2 years ago. I'm just reading what's in the system, sir. The change was logged, last month. Authorized by a board member, Whitmore, K. The line crackled. Roland didn't move. Last month, right when he'd gone out of town for work. He thanked the clerk, hung up, and stared out the motel window. The neon light outside flickered red against his reflection. All right, Karen, he muttered. You moved the line. Let's see how far you'll go to keep it there. The next morning, he drove up to the mountain again, this time, not to confront, but to watch. He parked 100 yards down the road, behind a bend of pines. From there, he could see the house, his house, in perfect silence. The silver SUV was still there. A second car, too, a county inspector's sedan. 2 men in jackets stood on the porch with clipboards. Karen was smiling, leading them around like a tour guide. Roland snapped photos from his phone, zoomed, steady. Each one clear. Then he hit record. The inspector said something he couldn't hear, but Roland saw the gesture, the man pointed at the property line stakes. Karen nodded, then handed him an envelope. Roland zoomed closer. It looked thick. He whispered, bribes. You really doing this in daylight? Suddenly, Karen turned, her eyes scanning the road. For a second, he thought she saw him. He ducked behind the steering wheel, heart pounding. Then he heard it, the faint hum of a drone. Roland looked up. A small quadcopter floated above the trees, red lights blinking. It hovered over his truck for just a moment, then drifted back toward the house. He cursed under his breath. You're watching me now. That's how deep this goes. He backed the truck down the hill, tires grinding softly against gravel, careful not to be seen. At the base of the road, he stopped, grabbed his camera, and flipped through the images. Each one was evidence. Each one was a piece of truth. But truth alone wasn't enough. He needed proof that would stand. That night, he made another call, this time to an old friend, a county deputy named Miles Carter. Miles, it's Roland. Been a while, the deputy said. You sound like a man standing in a storm. Roland exhaled. I'm about to be. Listen, I think the HOA stole my house. And I can prove it. Miles didn't laugh. Didn't doubt. He just said, then you better have paperwork. Real ones. I will, Roland said, eyes fixed on the photos glowing in the dark. By the time I'm done, this whole mountain's gonna know what they did. He hung up, the motel light flickering overhead, and began writing every date, every name, every forged signature into a spiral notebook. The war had officially begun. 2 nights later, the mountain was colder than he remembered. The moon hung low and wide, pale silver light dripping across the trees. Roland drove with his headlights off for the last half-mile, letting the moon guide him. He wasn't coming back as a homeowner tonight. He was coming back as a man taking his life back. Deputy Miles Carter sat beside him, radio off, hand resting on his flashlight. They hadn't spoken much on the drive. Both men knew silence was safer than plans spoken too loud. "You sure about this, Roland?" Miles asked finally. Roland nodded. "You said I needed proof. It's sitting inside my house right now." The road curved, and then the cabin appeared through the pines, smoke still rising, faint orange glow flickering through the curtains. Someone was still awake. Miles scanned the driveway. "SUV's there. She's home." Roland's jaw clenched. "Good. Let her see what stolen peace looks like when it ends." They parked behind the tree line and slipped out quietly. Gravel crunched like bones under their boots. Roland led the way to the back, to the workshop window he'd built himself. He still remembered cutting that glass. He'd designed it to let in morning light. Now, it was his way back in. The latch was stiff but gave after one careful twist. They stepped inside, flashlights low. Everything smelled wrong, cinnamon candles, detergent, a home he didn't recognize anymore. His furniture had been rearranged. His family photos, gone. On the table sat a thick black binder labeled Community Development, Pine Ridge Expansion. Roland opened it slowly. Inside were maps, signatures, property transfers. Dozens of them. Every one signed by Karen Whitmore, and every one shifting boundary lines uphill, toward his land. Miles whistled quietly. "You weren't kidding." Roland flipped through until he found it, his lot. Highlighted. Stamped reclaimed. At the bottom of the page was something worse, a second signature. County Planning Officer, Thomas B. Carter. Miles froze. "That's my boss." Roland looked up. "Your sheriff signed this?" Miles nodded slowly. "No. He doesn't sign anything without someone pushing him to." He reached for his phone. "We need to copy this." But then, footsteps. Two sets, coming down the hall. Roland killed the light. They pressed against the wall as the door creaked open. Karen's voice drifted in, sharp, annoyed. "I told you to lock the window, Dan. He's not done yet. I saw that truck near town." Her husband's voice followed, nervous. "Karen, it's 1 a.m. Can we just shut up? If he brings the sheriff, we're finished. You think I'm going to lose my community project because of some handyman who doesn't know his place?" Roland's fists curled. He felt Miles' hand on his arm, a silent reminder, not yet. Karen walked to the kitchen counter, flipping through papers. Then she paused. The binder was missing. Her tone sharpened. "Dan. Where is it?" Roland and Miles slipped through the back door, hearts pounding. They reached the truck just as the porch light flicked on behind them. "Hey!" Karen's voice cut through the cold. "Who's out there?" Roland turned just enough for the light to hit his face. Karen froze. Her eyes went wide. "You," she hissed. "You're trespassing." Roland lifted the binder slightly, just enough for her to see it. "Funny," he said quietly. "That's exactly what I was about to tell you." Before she could answer, he tossed the binder onto the truck seat and climbed in. Miles followed, slamming the door. The engine roared, gravel flying as they sped down the mountain. Behind them, Karen's porch light grew smaller, swallowed by the trees. Miles looked at the binder on Roland's lap. "That's it. With this, she's done." Roland stared out the windshield, the mountain fading behind them. "No," he said softly. "Not yet. She's going to watch it fall apart. He didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. He just kept driving, eyes fixed on the road, the glow of the binder reflected in the glass. The proof of everything they'd taken. And the beginning of everything he was about to take back. By dawn, Roland and Miles were sitting in the sheriff's office. The binder lay open on the desk like a confession. Sheriff Thomas Carter, Miles' boss, looked at it, face pale under the fluorescent light. His name was there, in ink, under every false boundary. Roland watched him shift in his chair. "I never signed half of these," the sheriff said finally. Miles crossed his arms. "They've been forging your signature, sir. HOA's been redrawing maps to steal property." The sheriff leaned back slowly, exhaling through his nose. "Whitmore. She's been coming in every month with new community plans. I thought it was legal." Roland spoke quietly. "Legal doesn't smell like bribes and stolen deeds." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the sheriff nodded. "Give me that binder. We'll make this official." But Roland didn't move. He stared at the man across the desk. "No disrespect, Sheriff, but if this stays official, it'll disappear. People like her don't go down in paperwork. They go down in public." Miles met his eyes, understanding. "You're thinking exposure." Roland nodded once. "Exactly." 3 days later, the HOA held its monthly meeting, a carefully staged performance of community values, inside a white-paneled town hall. Every seat was filled. Homeowners. Reporters. Even county staff. Karen stood at the front, smiling like she owned the air itself. "Welcome, everyone," she began, tapping the microphone. "Today we're proud to announce the expansion of Crestline Hills into Pine Ridge." The doors opened. Roland Pierce walked in. Calm. Focused. Behind him, Sheriff Carter, Deputy Miles, and 2 local reporters carrying cameras. Karen's voice faltered mid-sentence. "You don't belong here," she hissed. Roland stepped closer, holding the black binder high. "Oh, I belong," he said, voice steady. "Because this is my land. And you've been using it to build your little empire." Murmurs filled the hall. Karen's smile twitched. "Mr. Pierce, this is not the time." "Then maybe this is," he interrupted, slamming the binder onto the table. Pages spilled across the floor, forged signatures, fake surveys, payment envelopes with county stamps. Reporters rushed forward, cameras flashing. The sheriff picked up one sheet, reading it aloud. "Authorization for boundary reallocation, forged. Signed by a non-official party." The crowd gasped. Karen tried to speak, voice shaking. "This is a misunderstanding. He's twisting." But Miles stepped forward. "We've already matched the document numbers, ma'am. You moved 6 properties off public record. You stole 3 homes. And you took bribes to do it." Her husband in the back stood up quietly, face drained of color. Roland just watched her. Calm. Unblinking. She looked around, the same people who used to nod when she spoke now refused to meet her eyes. When she finally looked back at him, her voice cracked. "You don't understand, this was for the good of the community." Roland shook his head slowly. "You mean your community? The one where people like me don't belong." He took a step closer. "I built that house. With my hands. Every nail, every beam. And you thought you could just sign it away because you decided who fits where." Silence swallowed the room. Then the sheriff spoke. "Karen Whitmore, you're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and illegal land seizure." The cuffs clicked behind her wrist. The sound echoed like a gavel. Outside, the mountain wind was cold again, but clean this time. Roland stood in the parking lot, watching as they led Karen to the cruiser. Her eyes caught his for a second, the fury gone, replaced by disbelief. Miles came up beside him. "You did it, man. HOA's finished." Roland smiled faintly. "No. I just reminded them who really owns this land." He looked up toward the ridge. The smoke was gone. Only clear sky now. A week later, Roland moved back into his mountain house. The silence he'd missed so much had returned, deep, peaceful, honest. He stood on the porch at sunset, coffee in hand, listening to the pines whisper. No HOA meetings. No papers on his windshield. No one telling him who he was allowed to be. Just the sound of his own house. Breathing again. And for the first time in months. Roland Pierce smiled.